The Trump administration defending the president against accusations that the New Zealand attack was his fault.
To say, oh my goodness, it must somehow be the president's fault speaks to a politicization of everything.
Kirstjen Nielsen is set to give a major speech on the state of Homeland Security.
The border is being hit by the single males and the family units, so you do need the wall.
Every time we talk about a wall, it's not about a structure, but about xenophobia. It's about racism.
Fierce flooding pounds the Midwest. Record flooding already recorded in 17 areas, and it's just expected to get worse, with the Missouri River set to crest at nearly 48 feet tomorrow.
Joe Biden's slip-up hints at a presidential run.
I have the most progressive record of anybody running for the United States, anybody who would run.
Kyle Busch, his magic number 200 in Southern California.
Live, hour 3 of Fox and Friends, the world's #1 cable morning news show. Thanks to you.
Right. Everyone's thinking about basketball now, but you got to keep in mind, you saw spring training over the weekend, right?
I did.
So are you getting in the mood for baseball?
I had a great time. Went down and saw the Cardinals versus the Nationals. And my son's team is the Nationals. I grew up watching the St. Louis Cardinals and the Royals, of course.
Good game?
It was a great game. It went right down to the
I like
last
baseball.
inning. It was fun.
If you talk to any expert or visit any psychics, they predict the Yankees will win everything.
That's because you're in a New York state of mind right now.
And he frequents the psychics.
I also think that they have just way too much talent, and they hate Boston so much. There's no way to let this happen.
All right. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. We got Jed in today for Ainsley.
Yeah, great to be here.
And our lead story. Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen, is giving a major speech on the state of our Homeland Security today, where she is expected to address our southern border and the need for a wall.
It comes as freshman Democrat Rashida Tlaib calls the efforts to build a wall racist.
Fantastic. Looks like we're all on the same page. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with the latest. Hey, Griff.
Hey, guys, good morning. Listen, when Secretary Nielsen lays out her vision tonight for a more secure border at George Washington University, look for her to further make the case that we have an unsustainable humanitarian and security crisis. Let me give you some context. Just moments ago, my source in the RGV sector tells me their central processing center is overflowing. They hold 3,000. They have more than 4,700 yesterday. This comes as Congress plans to try and override the president's veto, who, by the way, hasn't forgotten that defecting dozen of Republicans. He writes this: those Republicans who voted in favor of strong border security and the wall are being uniformly praised as they return to their states. They know there is a national emergency at the southern border, and they had the courage to act. Great job. But as you mentioned, some Democrats, meanwhile, are labeling supporters of the border wall as racist. This is Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Every time we talk about a wall, it's not about a structure, but about xenophobia. It's about racism. It is a symbol in so many ways of targeting brown and black people in our country.
Now, acting White House Chief of Staff Nick Mulvaney says such claims are absurd. And Mulvaney also expects the president's veto will be upheld when Congress returns to try and vote to override it on the 26th. Meanwhile, we're getting more and more of these numbers out of DHS. It'll be interesting to see what we get from the secretary, guys.
Wow, thank you very much, Griff. You know, it's just so interesting that someone could just choose to talk about racist. Everything's racist. There's a million people coming across the southern border. You just heard what Griff just did some great reporting. 4,700 people in a facility that holds 3,000. If they were coming through the northern border, if the Russians were coming through Canada, we would actually be the same. We treat it the same exact way. The northern border isn't perfect, but the southern border is where the crisis is. Well, to use racist is just to shut down conversation.
They do that all the time, left and right, and it means actual forms of racism. They do it with racism. They do it with all the isms, sexism. This is not a new pattern, and it's interesting because in addition to it being a humanitarian crisis, we've been talking about human trafficking, drug trafficking. I think it is important to focus on the costs of these illegal crossings. If you look at the stats, illegal crossings, there were 76,000 in February, 76,000. The cost of sheltering illegal border crossers, over $3 billion. The cost of shelter, $775 per day for each unaccompanied teen. So this does become an issue for taxpayers who are looking at this and saying, hold on a second, this isn't just about a humanitarian crisis, although that's incredibly important, but this is also about our cost and what this is costing us every day to fund.
Sure, because where's that money come from? It comes from all of us who pay taxes. Right. And if the money is going toward that project and those people, is not going to other things. At least that's what Betsy McCoy, former lieutenant governor of New York, told us about 2 hours ago. And she said one thing about this president, Donald Trump, he looks at costs, and that's why he cares about this. Watch.
Right. The Democrats and many Republicans, 25 in Congress, voted against the emergency declaration. But when you look at what taxpayers are being forced to spend to house these fake asylum seekers, it's staggering. And the president, believe it or not, actually cares about taxpayers. Right on his budget, it says putting taxpayers first. And he's doing it by trying to stop this unnecessary expense.
Here's the thing. We have so many jobs available in this country. There has to be a blitz on the other side to maybe some of the great people that are coming across. If you need a job, maybe there's work visas that we could put on a fast track to get people at work. I talk to people in restaurants on a regular basis. Over the weekend, I talked to a guy, good friends with a guy who has a pool company, and he's saying to get guys to come in with papers and have them be ready to go is so difficult. And by the way, they're paying very good money. So you have people at the southern border, in many cases, want to work. You have people in the interior of our country who need workers. They have the work ethic. There's got to be a fast track for the work visa that would work.
It's so easy. You got to have Congress change the laws, though, because right now that's the problem. We've heard from all the ICE officials and Border Patrol, there are so many loopholes, and that is why we're in the morass we're at.
So Karl Rove over the weekend said there's really two tracks. There's a two-headed horse here, and attack both. Listen.
The mix of people approaching the border has changed dramatically. In the early part of the 21st century, it was mostly single men, mainly from Mexico, coming here for jobs. And a wall helps stop those people. The asylum seekers, the family units, which is what the current immigration flow largely is, they want to show up and surrender to the immigration authorities, and a wall really doesn't matter there. But the border is being hit by both types of people. The single males, many of them from Central America now, rather than Mexico, and the family units. So you do need the wall, and you need a change in the procedures that we have dealing with families.
You could have both. They're both a problem.
Yeah, and speaking of money, 2020 is well underway. Beto O'Rourke raised $6.1 million in the first 24 hours after announcing his candidacy. That's the most of any of the Democrats. $6.1 million for Beto, $5.9 million for Bernie Sanders, $1.5 million for Kamala Harris. I can't believe that Beto outfunded Bernie Sanders from the get-go, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, and it's about $200,000 more than that. Also, Amy Klobuchar apparently raised only $1 million in the first 48 hours. You know, so many people are talking about Joe Biden, when he's going to get in. I think he's going to get in as soon as he's got more money than Beto O'Rourke does, because that way. And look, now people were talking about Beto O'Rourke over the weekend, about his rollout in Iowa and various things he said. But this morning, he changes the subject. And the subject now is, look, while Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders may lead in these polls of likely voters, Beto O'Rourke actually leads in the poll of people who open their wallet and give him some cash.
Yeah, over the weekend he had to explain why he was involved with a hacking group. Over the weekend he had to explain why
was he involved in the hacking group?
Well, I don't think there's he regrets it. He apologizes.
He was a teenager.
Yeah, he also wrote a book where he runs over people, and some fiction novel that he put together. We know about his days. He had his brushes with the law in the past. And Beto O'Rourke also made a joke that I thought was a relatively harmless joke, that he was apologizing for it profusely the next day as it relates to his wife's role as raising their kids. So that was a heck of a rollout. Beto O'Rourke, though, wasn't done. He wanted to take aim at capitalism.
There's a lot more we got to do to make sure that this capitalism is just. The only way to meet some of these historic challenges is to be able to use this engine of capitalism. It won't be government intervention or policy alone. Now, having said that, it is clearly an imperfect, unfair, unjust, and racist capitalist economy.
Once again, the R word gets thrown. We were just saying moments ago, everything is called right now. Capitalism is racist. Can't wait to see what's next.
Look, how many people donated to his Texas senator campaign? He raised $80 million, and that's one of the things the people who observe politics were saying. If he gets into the presidential, will he be able to duplicate that? Right now, he's well on the way. But the big question is, when he comes to New York City with his hand out, goes down to Wall Street, all those capitalists out there, you know he's going to say, look,
You
You're
guys are
all
great.
racist.
But
You're great.
Yeah,
I need your money.
Will he keep his hand steady enough to be able to get that money and make it gripped? Because ever since the president brought it up about his hands going everywhere, which people have noticed and Jimmy Fallon made fun of, Chris Christie also noticed something else. The president's already started on Beto O'Rourke. Listen.
Here's the genius of him politically and why it was so hard to run against him. And Democrats go, Matt just used his words. He talked about Beto O'Rourke, who he knows, and he goes, he's got to do more than just waving his arms. Well,
the labeling.
Trump labels you, and he labels you in a way that is vivid and is stark and sticks. Low energy Jeb, Little Marco, Lion Ted, Crooked Hillary, right? It all sticks. I didn't get a nickname.
But he said you don't get a nickname if you're Trump, if he respects you. He says, notice it's Crying Chuck, but it's Nancy Pelosi. And he said that Trump is smart about how he does that. But right away, from the minute he said, I don't know, his arms are flailing everywhere with the Irish leader. I don't know about him with his arms. Is he crazy? Yeah. All of a sudden, you think you're staring at his hands when he goes out there.
If Trump's listening, he's laughing right now because he knows he does this and he knows it sticks.
All right, so that's some of the stuff going on right now. Carly joins us right now. And Carly, it looks like there's a potential terror attack.
Yes, that's right. We're going to begin with a Fox News alert. There is a massive manhunt right now after a possible terror attack in the Netherlands. This is a live look at the city of Utrecht, where there are multiple injuries in a shooting attack. Police now searching apartments and houses after raising the terror threat level to the maximum. Investigators say someone opened fire at a busy tram station in a residential neighborhood. We will keep you updated as new details come out. Authorities have identified the senior airman shot and killed during a gas station robbery in Arkansas. Police say 23-year-old Sean McCow Jr. was a customer inside at the time and was shot trying to stop two armed robbers. He died at the scene. McCow, an active member of the U.S. Air Force. Investigators are offering a $10,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest. Early evidence shows clear similarities between two deadly plane crashes involving Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes. Ethiopian officials say black box data from last week's crash that killed 157 people is reminiscent of the Lion Air disaster in October that killed 189 people. Both pilots struggled to control the plane. The news comes as the Transportation Department reportedly begins an investigation into the FAA's approval of Boeing's 737 MAX 8. And those guys are your headlines.
Lots of questions.
That's right.
Thank you, Carly.
Important
All right, thanks, Carly. 12 minutes after the hour. Straight ahead. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib defending her colleague Ilhan Omar. Here's why she says anti-Semitic remarks are okay.
I think Islamophobia is very much among the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party.
Alan Dershowitz here to react next.
How to avoid ICE for kids, the comic book for getting away from the feds.
Finally, what a great idea.
You're going to want to hear
Fantastic.
This. Coming up.
Why do you think people in your own party reacted so strongly against what she said?
I know this would be somewhat shocking for some, but I think Islamophobia is very much among the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party.
Rashida Tlaib doubling down on her support for fellow Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, blaming the rebuke of her anti-Semitic remarks on Islamophobia.
Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz is the author of The Case Against Impeaching Donald Trump. He joins us right now from Miami. Professor, what do you make of her comments regarding your party? Your party has the same problem the Republicans have.
Well, they come up with a new tactic. When you accuse somebody, even truthfully, of making anti-Semitic statements, the very accusation, whether truthful or not, is called Islamophobic. So it provides a complete defense, no matter who made the accusation, whether it's whether it's Chelsea Clinton, who called out Omar for her anti-Semitic statements, and she's attacked at NYU for contributing to the tragedy in New Zealand, or President Trump, who's also accused of causing the tragedy in New Zealand. It's a new justification for anti-Semitism. You can't call anybody out. for making anti-Semitic statements, because if you do, you're guilty of bigotry, you're Islamophobic.
So Chelsea Clinton lives in Manhattan, was around NYU, and here's the incident that you're referring to, that not only are you defending her, but Don Jr. was defending her over the weekend. Listen.
This right here is the result of a massacre stoked by people like you and the words that you have put out into the world. And I want you to know that, and I want you to feel that deep inside. The 49 people died because of the rhetoric that you put out there.
49 people died because of the rhetoric that Chelsea Clinton put out there? Are you kidding?
Well, it's amazing because Omar claims that the rest of us in the world are trying to stifle dissent. That all she wants to do is encourage dissent. She's trying to stifle dissent. But yet, people who in support of her are saying, no, 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 you cannot call out anti-Semitism. That's not appropriate speech. Because if you do identify anti-Semitic statements and condemn them, as everybody in the world should, you're guilty of bigotry and Islamophobia. It's designed to prevent people from calling out Farrakhan, from calling out Omer, from calling out anybody else who's made anti-Semitic statements. You cannot do that anymore, because if you do, you and Chelsea Clinton will be blamed for every anti-Muslim fanatic statement or act that's done anywhere in the world. It's designed to stifle debate, and everybody should recognize that. We should have the complete and full freedom to call out anti-Semitism or any other bigotry wherever it occurs without being worried that you'll be called a bigot if you do it.
That's right, Alan. And she was also bullied into apologizing, which she did, which I felt she shouldn't have had to. Anyone should be able to call out anti-Semitism and not have to apologize for that. Thank you so much for being here, Alan.
I agree.
The voice of reason.
All right, 8:20 now here in New York City.
Yeah, Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, she's here live coming up next.
Plus, California's governor defending his decision to end the death penalty.
My daughter says to me, you teach us not to kill. And yet, here I am, in a premeditated way, killing other people.
We can't do it.
On behalf of the state, I just can't do that.
Voted for it.
Well, that police officer was killed by someone on California's death row right now. His mother joins us with words for the governor coming up.
Some quick headlines. The man accused of stealing an American flag off of Trump supporters' float is behind bars. Police say Jared Handler allegedly took the flag off of Rob Cortis's Unity Bridge in New York. Cortis says other people there yelled profanities toward him. Cortis tours the country on the float filled with handmade signs to support President Trump and his agenda. And a state transportation worker needs a new job after calling President Donald Trump a delusional communist on their official Twitter account. The Kansas dot firing the unnamed employee. The agency has removed the tweet and says it doesn't reflect their views. Over to you, Steve.
I wonder who did that. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom halting executions of prisoners on death row in California last week. This as new 2020 contender Beto O'Rourke advocated for ending the federal death penalty.
I cannot sign off on executing hundreds and hundreds of human beings, knowing that among them will be innocent human beings. I believe the death penalty is wrong.
It's not an equitable, fair, just system right now. And on, moral grounds, I oppose the death penalty.
But what about the families of murder victims still waiting for justice to be served? California police officer Larry Lassiter was shot and killed, that's his picture right there, back in 2005 while attempting to apprehend 2 armed robbery suspects. His killer, Alexander Hamilton, has been sitting on death row since he was convicted in 2007. Joining us right now is Officer Lassiter's mother, Phyllis Loya. She joins us today from Oakland. Phyllis, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me what happened to your son, Larry.
Well, my son was on a foot pursuit and he was ambushed, shot twice, and was killed in the line of duty protecting his community.
He was eventually this man who was convicted and placed on death row. You felt that that was justice served. considering what had happened. But now that Gavin Newsom has said, you know what, those guys on death row, the people on death row will not die on his watch. What's your message to him, the governor of California?
Well, I have quite a few things to say to the governor. One of them being, why did you lie to the voters of California during your campaign? Because he said he would obey the will of the people. He said that to several editorial boards. That was his position, and he was asked specifically about the death penalty. So he said that he would enforce the law. We had just passed Prop 66 in 2016. He knew what the law was. He said he would follow the will of the people. I live in a very blue state. But the will of the people regarding the death penalty is they wanted the death penalty, they wanted to stop the delay, and instead what he's now done is impose his own personal will over the voters. He betrayed us. He stole justice from us like a thief in the night. He knew he was going to do this from the gate, I'm sure. He called a meeting at 3:30 for the first time, spoke with any victims, announcing that he was going to do a moratorium the next day. He did not consider the victims. He has no heart for victims. He's all about Gavin Newsom and furthering the left agenda and furthering his own political career by betraying us.
Well, Phyllis, I know you feel like you were blindsided by this announcement. He was actually over on The View on ABC on Friday, and Abby Huntsman asked him a question, and it relates to you, and I want you to listen to his answer.
What do you tell that the parent though that still disagrees? Says, I don't have closure.
What do you say to the one that says you have to eradicate evil?
I literally said there's nothing I can do to bring your child back. There's nothing I can say to change your point of view. The fact is, though, I'm entrusted to do something much broader than just address one individual case. I've got to address a system that is race-based system of tremendous injustice for black and brown people.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think that he is in denial about the existence of what's really happening in California. First of all, he claims it's racist. I do not think it is. He talks about 6 out of 10 are people of color, but let's actually look at the real numbers. There are right now 247 white death row inmates in California. There are 266 black death row inmates, 184 Hispanic, and 40 other. All these individuals were tried by juries that were racially balanced, and his argument is flawed. It's just flawed.
I had not heard those numbers before. Phyllis, thank you very much for joining us today, giving us your point of view and telling us about your son, Larry.
Well, I'd like to also talk about my son, because one of the things that I would ask Gavin Newsom is, my son served his country as a Marine Corps officer for 6 years before going into law enforcement. He died protecting his community. Even in death, my son continued to serve. He lived a life of service. He continued to serve by being an organ donor, saving 5 people. What more could my son have possibly have done for the citizens of the state of California, or Governor Newsom, for him not to have stolen justice from us? He came like a thief in the night and stole justice from all the victims of death row killers in California.
All right. Phyllis Loya joining us today from Oakland, California. Phyllis, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
All right. What do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. Meanwhile, the political left trying to blame President Trump for the New Zealand terror attack.
Is the president's rhetoric exacerbating the problem?
The idea is that the president had this opportunity to once again denounce white nationalism. He didn't do that.
We're going to talk to Kellyanne Conway about that and so much more coming up. And how to avoid ICE for kids. Comic book for getting away from the feds. Right back. We have a Fox News alert for you right now, and a possible terror attack in the Netherlands. This is a live look in the Dutch city of Utrecht, where there are multiple injuries in a shooting attack.
Police say they are looking at terrorism as a possible motive.
And get this, it happened on a tram station in a residential neighborhood. People are being told to stay away from the area. We'll keep you updated as news comes out because we know what happened in New Zealand, and there is a fear and a state of alert, formal, informal, on various major cities and key locations around the world.
All right. They have not figured out whether or not it is terror yet. We will keep you posted on that. Meanwhile, switching gears, stateside, Democratic hopefuls, look at all those right there so far, making their messages clear in their push to take on President Trump for the White House. But what do voters think about those faces in those pictures?
Well, so far, let's see. Joining us now with the brand new dials on this very topic, partner and president of Maslansky Partners, Lee Carter. Hey, Lee.
Great to be here. Can you believe we're here already?
Yes, I can.
I can.
And guess who's back again? Bernie Sanders.
Oh, yeah. Yes, he is.
What's his issue?
He's got a lot of issues, but he is really resonating with Democrat voters. I think it's important to take a watch of what he's saying. Let's take a look.
Watch the dials.
Very few in the media took our campaign seriously. We came here and we said we need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. But the establishment said, Bernie, that's a radical idea. We said that guaranteeing health care to all is a right, not a privilege. Oh, and they said too radical.
And the blue line, the Democrats through the roof, but the independents and the Republicans gave him an F.
Independents and Republicans gave him an F. Democrats absolutely love him. Give him an A+. So I tell folks, dismiss Bernie Sanders at your own peril and a lot of his ideas. The Democrats are really resonating with him. He's talking about issues. He's setting pace here, and people are responding to it. And remember, the primary is about getting your base out. It's not necessarily about getting out the independents.
When's the first time someone's going to turn to him and say, Bernie, when you do minimum wage, it's destroying small business. When's the next time someone's going to turn around and tell him that if you have Medicare for all, it's going to destroy the jobs as well as the whole Medicare system?
Trump in the
Look, I think a lot of people are trying to do that, but it doesn't necessarily take down his supporters. What people need to do, his supporters need to hear that there's an alternative that's going to make life better for them with health care and with a living wage. That's what they want to hear.
All right, let's take a look at Beto, who has come out like wildfire. Listen to him comparing climate change to the fight to D-Day.
Those who faced an existential threat to Western democracy and our way of life, they showed us the way. We can all come together, we can unite, we can marshal the resources, and we can convene the countries of the world around otherwise unsolvable problems. That moment is now for us on this issue. So if there's a time to reassert global leadership and make friends instead of enemies, it's today because the challenges are too great.
Climate change and D-Day, and Democrats gave him an A.
So they did. They gave him an A. And look, even independents and Republicans gave him a C-. There's something about him that is very likable to folks. There was something nostalgic about what he was saying by comparing things about the greatness of America coming together to fight the great challenges of the day. The fact that he likened this to climate change did take it a step too far, and when you get to him actually making that analysis, you'll see that the dials jumped.
I thought the key was the independents and Republicans both pretty much rejected. C-. You think they're
voting together.
It's a lot better. It's a lot better than some of the others. And you look at the way the Republicans and independents are responding to most candidates, it is flatline. The only ones that give any credit to is Beto and to Biden.
All right, let's see how the population feels about Senator Elizabeth Warren, who says in this soundbite, do not call her a socialist.
Bernie has to speak to what democratic socialism is.
But you are not one.
And I am not. All I can tell you is what I believe, and that is there's an enormous amount to be gained from markets, that markets create opportunities.
I've never seen something like that. All three right kind of in the middle.
That's basically, I think they're all snoring. You know what I got? There's absolutely no reaction. As much as what people say, you know, she's polarizing, she's this, she's that. People don't like her ideas that much. Some people do love her ideas. When it comes down to it, people watch her and they just blah. So you can see Democrats C+, independents is C. It just didn't do anything for anybody.
Sure, but she is talking somewhat free market, which could be heartening for people who think the Democratic candidate is going to...
It could be heartening, but when I was looking at the comments, basically people were just like, tuning her out.
And if, you know, we noticed that the independents are voting with the Republicans on those things. That's right. Probably good news for the incumbent.
That is very good news for the incumbent. And we saw that, remember, in 2015, 2016, the independents were lining up with the Republicans. It's going to be interesting to see how, as this field narrows up, how it's going to look. But right now, it does look like they're very much in line with the Republicans.
Lee Carter, thank you very much.
Great to be here.
All right. No one snores through Carly Shimbek's newscast, I'll tell you that.
Oh, thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it. Let's get you caught up on some more news here. A police officer is dragged by an ATV down a busy road during an illegal bikers protest in Nashville. The officer trying to stop the four-wheeler when the rider took off, leaving him clinging to the side before falling off. The 22-year police veteran has minor injuries. Authorities are searching for the suspect. Yikes. And take a look at this. 3 women just walking down the street are nearly crushed as a massive wall collapses. All 3 jumping out of the way just in the nick of time as the entire wall comes crumbling down in Turkey. No one was hurt, thankfully. Crews are investigating how this happened. And Dog the Bounty Hunter's son carries on his father's legacy. Leland Chapman credited with capturing a fugitive and turning him over to police in Alabama. The Morgan County Jail sharing this photo of the star's son posing with law enforcement after catching the accused criminal. It's unclear what the suspect was wanted for, and his name has not been released. And why did the cow cross the road? Well,
I don't know if there's a cow in Noblesville. Somebody have a lasso or something?
Hey, is it like a promo for Chick-fil-A? He's running.
Where'd it go?
Can you believe that? The cow escaped a transport trailer dodging traffic to get to a Chick-fil-A in Indiana. The cow was eventually caught and returned to its owners. What is that called when life imitates art?
That's
Art
right.
imitates life?
Eat more chicken, just like the commercial.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
I believe that if you're an animal and you escape from slaughter, you should be allowed to live. Do you agree with that, Janice?
I do agree. I'm not sure. I love Chick-fil-A, though. Oh, my gosh. Look at this. This is amazing. We're always Sunny watching Janice. Mostly Sunny. I hear that's a great book. We love Janice's lunchbox jokes. Look, Brian, we got dressed. My wife is inducted to Fox News. It's incredible. And where are you guys from?
Abilene, Kansas.
Where's that?
Hometown of Steve Doocy.
Oh, my gosh. It's a love fest here on Fox Square. Let's take a look at the maps. I love you. We've got 33, but it's so warm right now in New York City because of all the love that is out here on 48th and 6th. Watching the radar. Okay, quiet week. However, our big story is the flooding, my friends, across Nebraska and Iowa, where we have flood warnings still in place. All of that flooding is going to move down towards the Missouri and the Mississippi River Valley. This is going to be a big story this week, so we will watch it over the next couple of days. There is the future radar. Quiet, but we do have some showers moving into those flood-prone areas, so we will certainly keep you up to date. And by the way, spring arrives on Wednesday. Will you guys come all week long? It's amazing. The love I feel is incredible today. Put that on your face.
That's
great. Yes.
Very nice. What a huge crowd. Is it spring break or something?
Janice gets the best crowds. She really does.
We're getting up to it.
Right, and they're good-looking people.
They are, especially the folks from Abilene, Kansas.
Yeah, absolutely.
My hometown.
19 minutes before the top of the hour, 5 MS-13 members charged in a horrific attack, stabbing one of their own 100 times. Our next guest says this is more proof. We need all the resources we can to protect our border, and he's a Border Patrol guy.
Plus, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib doubling down on support for Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, blaming Islamophobia for the outrage over Omar's anti-Semitism. Alan Dershowitz here to react next hour.
Good morning. Some quick headlines to get to. The next generation of iPhones could have foldable screens. Apple has filed several patents for foldable phone designs. Apple says the iPhone 11 will also likely feature a triple rear camera. The new phone is expected to hit stores later this year. And Burger King is experimenting with a new coffee subscription service. Subscribers can get a small cup of Joe every single day for just $5 a month. That means each cup will set you back only 17 cents. You cannot, however, get refills or iced coffees. Interesting. Brian, I'll send it over to you.
All right, thanks, Carly. The notorious gang MS-13 involved in yet another horrific crime here in the United States. Police say these 5 known gang members stabbed one of their own over 100 times before setting his body on fire. What type of crazy behavior is this? Well, the victim's mom claims he was forced to join MS-13 and was killed for trying to get out of MS-13. So is this even more proof that we need a wall at the border, or is it something else? Our next guest is the author of this brand new book called Unwavering, A Border Agent's Journey from Hunter to Hunted. Jason Piccolo is a former ICE supervisor and whistleblower during the Obama administration. He joins us right now. First, with this MS-13 killing of their own. Does this scenario sound familiar? Forced in, can't get out?
Yeah, exactly. Their mantra is kill, rape, control. And this same thing happened last year. I don't know if the victim last year wanted to get out of the gang or was even associated with the gang, but he was stabbed 100 times, dismembered, and decapitated. You're seeing this all over the place.
You got a few thousand arrested this year with MS-13. You have the drugs, and you have people who are looking for asylum just flooding our borders. It's not any one thing, it's everything. But look at these costs. Illegals crossing, well, 76,000 in February. That is a high that we haven't seen in almost 10 years. Cost of sheltering illegal border crossings, over $3 billion. For those who say you have a big heart, those billions could be going to our social programs here. Cost of a shelter, $775 per day. And when you have thousands coming every month, and when you have over $1 million a year, who's paying for that? We are.
Yeah, we are. And, you know, we need more resources. It's not just the wall we need. We need more special agents. We need more officers to dismantle these organizations. And then we also need optics down south that if you come here, you're not going to get some sort of benefit. Right now, the thing is, if you come across the border, they think they're going to get a benefit.
And to turn off that magnet, you say it's time to get rid of this Flores Amendment. 93, it goes into agreement, goes into action, and that says that if you come across this border, we got to house you, and if you're a kid, you can't stay more than 20 days. Therefore, the word gets out to Ecuador, to Guatemalans, to Nicaraguans. If you want to come to America, they can't get rid of you, right?
Well, the thing is, we need that bipartisan immigration reform we've been talking about ever since I became a guest on here last year. It's just, how is it ever going to happen? Right now, you can't do anything, get any laws passed, even if you piecemeal it.
Right. Jason, you say from hunted to hunter to hunted. Why?
Why? Because I used to go after the narco traffickers. I used to go after the human smuggling organizations. And then when I blew the whistle, I essentially put a target on my back and became hunted.
Wow. The name of the book is Unwavering, A Border Agent's Journey from Hunter to Hunted. Jason, thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Straight ahead, California's governor defending his decision to end the death penalty.
My daughter says to me, you teach us not to kill. And yet, here I am, in a premeditated way, killing other people.
We can't do it.
On behalf of the state. I just can't do that.
Beto O'Rourke wants to ban it at the federal level. This police officer was killed by someone on California's death row. His mom joins us live next hour. And forget helicopter parenting. Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman were caught in the emission scam. You know that. There's a new trend. It's called snowplow parents. We'll explain.
Term helicopter parents after the rich and famous like actresses Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman were caught in that college admissions cheating scandal. The New York Times is now warning of a new dangerous parenting style: snowplow parents.
Here to react, family therapist and author of Disconnected, How to Reconnect Our Digitally Distracted Kids, Tom Christing. Tom, I am so excited to have you here. I used to be a teacher of grades 7 through college, dean of a high school, so I saw this all the time. What do we do about this issue of parents micromanaging their kids, doing homework for their kids, and not allowing their kids to fail on their own?
I think what the problem has become this, all right? So when we hear these stories about kids getting into these elite colleges and so forth, it's not about their kids, it's about the parents. Right. I posted something recently on social media, the sticker on the back windshield of cars is now can be the most important thing in the world for parents so that they can keep up with the Joneses in their neighborhood.
Because that validates what I did, got my kid into Harvard.
That's right. That's right. So it's kind of living vicariously through your children to serve your own needs as a parent. And people are going to the ends of the earth. So we hear this term, snowplow parenting, also lawnmower.
Which is get everything out of the way for my kid.
That's right. Well, I'm going to plow through the system. I'm going to get what I want. There's also something, I don't know if anybody's heard of this, 504 accommodations, okay? So in public education, that's if a kid has any kind of disability.
You get more time.
Yeah, they can get extra time on tests and so forth. So we've dealt with a lot of those issues, too, with kids that are actually doing really well, even though they have a disability, and the parents, you know, can oftentimes really try to bulldoze through the system.
Oh, yes.
Right. Here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, I just want my kids, this is what I think is the new nuance to this. I want my kids to be successful for them. You're saying these parents want their kids to be successful for the parents. It's about them. When did it become about them and not about the kid?
Yeah, I mean, you know, what I tell people, the secret sauce to our kids being successful is values, integrity, and ethics, okay? And if parents are going to the ends of the earth to do these unethical things, what is the message that the kids are receiving?
Well, you go back into the 50s and 60s. Parents back then tried to do everything they could to get their kids into college and stuff like that because nobody in their family had ever done it. Yeah. But we have continued to take that torch, and we will do anything for our kids, many of them going over the line like that.
And oftentimes, you know, it's preventing kids from experiencing any kind of failure or rejection, right? So in life, if you're constantly insulated from that as a kid, when you get out in the real world, you're going to be confronted with something that's really going to sting.
And you'll have nothing to draw.
You're not going to have the emotional intelligence to be able to handle
What did my mom do?
Yeah.
You won't have those character building skills.
Our kids they need to fail. Yeah. Whatever the definition of failure is, we have to have that.
I hope my kids fail today. I really do. In some way.
Right. But it's not about the kid failing. It's about you failing.
It really has. It's become so much about the parents.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, straight ahead, a Vietnam veteran fighting for 2 decades to fly the flag outside his house. He finally won. He's going to join us and tell us his story in the next hour.